At this time, it's our honor and privilege to call upon the man. Like I said, needs no introduction. Rabbi Benzion, Klatzko, all the way from Muncie, does so much for Klal Yisrael, is aware of this topic very, very much, being with the work that he does with Olami and the college campuses all over the world. Without further ado, let's give a round of applause to Rabbi Benzion, Klatzko.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you words of introduction. I'm not going to be giving you an entire speech, as it were. I think if we open our eyes and we look around the community, we should be startled, we should be shaken to our core. In our home, we have a basement, and the basement was finished. It was finished at great expense. And in the basement, there's a plaque. And the plaque is named after a young man who was somebody with tremendous midos, somebody who loved Hashem, loved Torah, and he shouldn't have left this world so quickly, except that on Friday night, he, together with his friends, made l'chaims, and they made a few more and a few more, and unfortunately, this young man did not wake up. And we dedicated our basement and an achnosas archim to this young man. And the baltashchis, the waste of a neshama, of the potential of a person who could have raised a family and children and grandchildren just to go to sleep Friday night and not wake up. What led to that? What leads to our community thinking that part and parcel of being Jewish, or a frum Jew, or a modern geschmacke lebendige frum Jew involves the ingestion of substances? How did we get to where we are today? It's a longer question than I can answer right now, but it does go back at least a few hundred years. Things like Besam and Ketores, and they had all sorts of holy names for things that today we understand, we know are hallucinogenics. They are things that are addictive. They are substances that we make part of our Yiddishkeit. And it never had to be this way. Years ago, my brother, alav shalom, his name was Gavriel, he had a shul in Johannesburg, and he proposed something quite novel. It was Simchas Torah, and he said, I'd like to have a dry Simchas Torah. And this is more of a Baal Tshuva shul. It's called the Sunny Road Synagogue. A lot of people were not born religious, and they were going to celebrate Simchas Torah. So he said, I'd like to practice doing a dry Simchas Torah. Let's celebrate the Torah for the sake of the Torah. And sure enough, the people in his shul were respectful, and they did not bring the vodka, they did not bring the substances, and they danced and they sang, except that there was a group of geschmacke guys that were bachrim from another shul nearby in the neighborhood, and those bachrim were shul hopping, and they ended up in his shul with their bottles of booze. And once they brought the bottles, people began to drink, and other people got drunk. After the dancing, after Musaf, there was a communal meal. And my brother, alav shalom, said, we're so happy that you came. It's such an honor that each of you came to our Simchas Torah. But next time I'm going to ask you, please don't bring your friends. And everyone's looking around, I shouldn't bring my friends? What do you mean I shouldn't bring my friends? He said, no, I'm asking you, please don't bring your friends. Which friends do I mean? You don't have to bring Jack and you don't have to bring Johnny. Next time, don't bring Jack and Johnny. We don't need Jack Daniels. We don't need Johnny Walker. We should be able to be mesameach with our own Yiddishkeit without needing the substances. That's the struggle. And today, and I'm going to give you a little bit of the evolution, unfortunately, we are living through a lot of difficult challenges, and one of them is that there are people who unfortunately have gone off the derech. Kids at risk, people have gone off the derech. Even people who came from very religious or even Hasidic homes, they've left Torah mitzvahs. However, many of them end up coming back. But when they come back, they want to refashion, recreate their Judaism. The austere, the strict, the stern, the halacha, very exacting, they felt repelled them. So instead, there's a new version. And the new version could involve a simcha, a kalbach davening, a kumsitz at night, a barbecue. And it's a much more mellow version of Yiddishkeit. And there's what to be said for people feeling comfortable and happy within Judaism. But somehow, what glammed on to this kind of Judaism, this kind of wonderful, warm, loving, open mellowness became the heter, the permissibility, maybe even the encouragement of things like a l'chaim, or smoking up, or feeling good, so we'll share pills amongst ourselves. And having lived in a frum community, now for many years, I used to live in the UCLA campus, and we sort of expected that on a campus, but in the frum community, you would expect us to be able to find meaning within Yiddishkeit without needing these substances. Yeshaya HaNavi speaks about this way back when. He already said that there will be a time, this is the times of the first Beis HaMikdash, where Hashem says, I did not need you. I didn't need your bamos. I didn't need you to come to Ramos Chatzeroi. I didn't need that because you came with a hololus. You came with a simcha that was not the simcha shel mitzvah, but it turned out to be the simcha of other things. It was too much. We know when the Aron Kodesh was brought back to Plishtim, they couldn't take the Aron Kodesh, they had stolen it, and then they had to give it back because there was a big magefa. There was a big magefa. So it was brought back to Beit Shemesh, and what happened? There was this kind of simcha which ended up in disaster and magefa for the Yidden. Why? They were so besimcha, they got the Aron Kodesh back. But there's a way of being besimcha without the external stimuli. And unfortunately, the external stimuli has become part of Judaism today. It's become not just permitted, but it's become part of what we do. So if you have a kiddush, or you have a kiddush club, or a kiddush afterwards, you've got to have bottles and bottles of tequila and vodka. And unfortunately, our children are watching, and they see, and they're learning what makes Tati or Abba happy. And then when they're 13, they're 14, they're 15, they try it themselves. And if not that, then they're chugging down cans of beer. And eventually, in our own community, which is supposed to be kadoshim to you, perushim to you, to be able to separate what is worthwhile from what isn't, from what is the crutch, what is the external stimuli, eventually the lines become blurred. There's a halacha, and the halacha is Shisui Asr Lispalal, V'im Ispalal Tfilasa To'eva. A person who was drunk, Asr Lispalal, can't daven. And if he davens, his tefillah is called to'eva. It's disgusting. And you would think, why? The opposite. You know, you've heard the rabbi say, the best speech I give is after a nice cup of tequila, a nice cup of vodka. Best speech that I give. You see singers all the time, even in the Jewish world, before they come on stage, or sometimes on stage, they'll bring the cup to stage, they'll look at everyone, they say, L'chaim, and they chug down an entire cup of vodka, and then they begin Mashiach, Mashiach, and the message becomes clear. The message is that you're not good enough. You're not comfortable in your own skin. You feel full of anxiety, and the best way for you to escape you is to bathe your brain with other substances so that I don't have to think anymore. And unfortunately, it's called addiction for a reason. And there are certain substances that are emotionally addictive, certain that are chemically addictive, certain that are both. But an addiction means I am doing something that is not good for me. And ultimately, it's going to stop me from functioning properly. I can't function unless I have the following pills in my system. So I'm a cripple. I can't be myself unless I have my cups of wine in the morning. So I'm the housewife that takes the cups of wine in the morning just to feel normal. One of the beautiful things that the Torah gives us is a sense of value even when we're not feeling our best. We're allowed to say, I'm not feeling great today. We're allowed to say, you know what? Yeah, my head is not the sharpest. I'm not having the best kavanah, but I'm going to battle. I'm going to do milchama. It doesn't say anywhere, no. You're mechuyev to feel your best always, and therefore, if you need help, here's your help. Here's the help, because you got to be at your best. Could you imagine if a Rabbi says, I have to be on every day, so I'll take a cup of wine before I teach second grade. I'll take a cup of vodka before I give my Beis Medrash shir. But it's become normal. And I would say that that's the most dangerous thing. And unfortunately, in our community, a week does not go by, nearly a week does not go by, when we don't hear of another person who has overdosed, another person who has died of alcohol poisoning, another person who is addicted and they've become psychotic. And it's more than ever. And the anxiety and the depression and the lack of feeling good in our own skin. So what do we do about this? How do we put a halt to what's become a normalized epidemic in our community? How do we say, no, this is not okay? How do we not understand that if we let this go, it will get worse and not better? So the first thing is, we have to understand that if somebody is already taking these things, they are a chola, they're ill. An addiction creates an illness, and I know the older generation didn't like to hear this. What do you mean? You caused yourself your own illness. It is an illness, unfortunately. And it has to be treated with a certain degree of rachmanis. It has to be treated with very delicate hands. It's one of the reasons why even today we're backtracking from just throwing people in jail because they have substance addictions. But there are places to get treatment. And we have to understand the pikuach nefashos that's involved. If we don't get these people treatment, if we don't get our children treatment, only bad things can happen. Eventually, unfortunately, their lives will go to pot. It will destroy them. And some of it can be in the name of Yiddishkeit, and it still is very destructive. So there are experts out there in the field, and there are organizations like Amudim that deserve our support, because what they're doing is unique. They're speaking about it. They're getting the help, the therapy that's needed. They're finding homes for people who are struggling. They're helping them wean off of substances. We're not immune to it. The opposite. It is infiltrated much quicker than anyone thought it would. Years ago, when it was time for me to move to Muncie, someone said, careful, this is starting. And this is 15 years ago. I said, and I said, that can't be. And yet I can tell you, every week, even in my own house, people come in. Of course, we don't let it. But in my own house, people come in. Is it okay if I smoke weed here? Is it okay if I take this? Do you have extra Adderall? Do you have extra this? Do you have extra that? I need something to calm me. I need something to pick me up. Without achrayus, without understanding, what are we using it for? How are we using it? Was it prescribed? We don't need it for our Yiddishkeit. We need to get the help. And we can't close our eyes and say our community, it's not part of us. It's here. It's not coming. It's here. It exists. It's almost in the category of ki ein bayis asher ein shames. There's no home where there's at least someone, if not a sibling, if not a child, then a relative, then a friend, somebody that we know that has struggled with this and is currently struggling. And unfortunately, it's killing our children. It's killing them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be in control. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be able to control our Yetzer Hara. And when we've fallen, we have the resources now to pick ourselves up. So I ask Frankel to come and give us the resources. Thank you. Let me repeat what you're saying, because they can't hear from the mic. So I'm going to repeat. We have somebody here who works in a funeral home, and what's your name? Saul. And Saul says one of the worst things that we're doing in our community is that when there's somebody who passes away, maybe even particularly a young person, we're told to keep quiet, that it was from an overdose. And because of that, we don't hear. And of course, the family feels embarrassed, they feel ashamed. No one wants to blame the nifter, because the old attitude was that, who told you to start with this stuff in the first place? So therefore, you're the cause of your own death. What an embarrassment, what a shame. So let's keep it quiet. But by keeping it quiet, what happens? We think the problem doesn't exist, or we think it's much smaller than it actually is. Today, we're being more progressive when it comes to addiction. We understand that our children are much, much more exposed to this stuff than we ever were. Growing up, I did not know what weed looked like. I had no idea. Never occurred to me. It was like so off the radar. Now, it seems like every child at the age of 15, 16 has a question, should I smoke weed or not? It became something. And then the pills are being prescribed as a go-to instead of as a backup, or instead of as a later resort. Let's start with this, because otherwise it's hard work. And the pharmacy companies, as we know, they're being sued for this. But the psychiatrists, they're incentivized to offer this to their patients. So they're incentivized, the patients are getting it, the parents are happy because the kids seem to be acting normal. The kids not only feel normal if they have this stuff in their system, and the more they have, they say, if I could feel normal, if I take this amount, I'll feel much more normal. If I can get B's on a test, then I can get A's on a test if I take more. And then they get older and they need larger doses. And then they're told, okay, you know what? I have a quick metabolism, so I got to take more. I'm sure you know my quick metabolism. So let's take more. Let's take more. So now I'll take 3 a day. I'll take 4 a day. Quick metabolism. Let's up the dose. And then I can go on. And this is not even my area. I'm just from hearing what happens. And then unfortunately, more kids die from this than from car accidents. And it hits our community. And what do we do about it? We, like you said, like Saul is saying, it's hush hush. It's quiet. Why is it quiet? Because we're ashamed. So maybe, like you said, with other issues that our community has had, we have to stand up and agree that yes, we have Torah, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu also made us flesh and blood, and we have the same taivas, and the internet is still floating out there, and the messages are floating out there. And this has hit our kids in a big way. It's hit them. And we have to pull on the brakes right now. Okay, so having said that, we're going to learn how to do that. We have one more. Last question is we want real solutions. So tell me your first name again. Stephen. Of course I remember you. Of course I remember you. Stephen. I want to put into words what Stephen's saying, and then we could end with this. It's such a simple point. Today, again, we've drifted into alcohol versus drugs, so you'll get us on track. But today, alcohol has become a status symbol. It's a status symbol. And the stupidity, if I can say this, is that the whole thing is nonsense. And people come to my house, I have an 18-year-old Woodruff, I have a 21-year-old thing. And everyone, oh, wow, you got this bottle, that bottle. And the truth is, A, most people don't know the difference. C, by raising it up, by putting it on a pedestal, we make it a thing. We make it a thing. So even people who can't stand the taste, they just drink because it's time to drink. Everyone's drinking, so the peer pressure makes me want to drink. Believe it or not, most people don't enjoy alcohol. That's the truth. I'm saying it right here. Thank you. Most people don't enjoy alcohol. You know why? Because it burns and it tastes disgusting. Okay, I'm just, sorry, I hate to be honest. But most people don't like alcohol. So why do we drink it if it tastes terrible and it burns? Well, I like to get dizzy. Okay. There are people like to get high, but you know what? There's a pressure to do it. There's a pressure. Everyone's making a l'chaim. Did you ever see when I have people over for Shabbos? Come on, Rabbi, make a l'chaim with us. And I take a l'chaim. Then another group, Rabbi, you didn't make a l'chaim with us. So there's a pressure to fill up another cup. I'm not liking the taste. I'm not liking the feeling. It's making me feel out of control. Why? What for? And there's this pressure, and people are hiding bottles under the table, and then they're taking it out. You've seen that? They hide the bottles under the table, and they take it out. You don't even trust the host, whoever the host is. They'll have enough alcohol. I got to bring my own bottle because I want to make sure I'm drunk tonight. You're all laughing, but you know what I'm saying is the truth. We got to make sure that we get drunk, so I'm going to have my bottles under the table. And this became a status symbol. Alcohol became a status symbol. And that's what the kids are getting. The kids are not suddenly enjoying the taste of alcohol. It tastes like it tastes to them, like it tastes to us. But what they're getting is it's cool. It's a status thing to drink it. At Motzei Shabbos, that's what you do is you drink. Erev Shabbos, you take your Erev Shabbos l'chaim. And before you know it, you have your Erev Shabbos l'chaim, where everyone makes l'chaim before mincha, which is a big question whether you could daven afterwards. And then afterwards you have your l'chaim, for Kiddush, then you have your l'chaim after the fish, then you have l'chaim at the table, and soon you're a drunkard. And soon you're doing it every week. And soon your kids are watching and they're becoming drunkards, and it's become an epidemic. There's no question. My father, with his tremendous wisdom, we get a lot of bottles because we have a lot of guests. So a lot of guests bring bottles. It's wonderful. If you're watching, that's fine. Thank you. We appreciate it. And I used to give the bottles in like a little nice container, like this, so like a little wine cellar, by my table. So you look nice, you put the bottle in, put the bottle on. And my father, in his wisdom, one day said, can I make a suggestion? Get rid of all of it. Put it in your room. Don't make it a thing. If it becomes a thing where the bottles, you got this fancy bottle and that bottle, and you take it out and you look at it, wow, this is an old bottle, it's an old wine, and then everyone's got to drink it and feel status, and then soon you've glorified alcohol. So let's call a spade a spade. Now let's get some real wisdom. Rabbi Moshe.